All right, so in this video, I will hope to clear up some of the most common misunderstandings and confusing points about the art and practice of Qigong. The first thing to understand is this is not something you can just show up and do, just like you wouldn't show up and be a black belt in something like jiu-jitsu, or you wouldn't show up and automatically be an ultra long distance runner, or you wouldn't show up and automatically be a world's strongest man competitor, or you wouldn't show up and just be a billionaire. It's obviously something that has specific qualities, specific conditions, specific causal relationships, and a specific process that leads to specific outcomes. It also has nothing to do with acupuncture channels, nothing to do with visualization or imagination, nothing to do with chakras, and nothing to do with yoga. And I mention that because in modern times, all of this stuff gets lumped together and people kind of piecemeal a bunch of random things together and think that it's all the same and it's all one and it's all similar, when in reality that is absolutely completely untrue and completely removed from reality, and is actually quite disrespectful and insulting to all of those traditions. Like, people think they're being cool and progressive by dumping everything in the same bucket, but actually they're being quite disrespectful and rude to those traditions and the millions of people that toiled over the last thousands of years trying to perfect these arts and these different disciplines. So basically, Qigong or any other internal training modality without the correct qualities, the correct causes, and the correct conditions, I think is a huge waste of time, like tremendous waste of time. One of the dumbest things that you can do. There's so many better things that are so much better for your health than doing these things incorrectly. And in actuality, if someone does it incorrectly, which is normally what people do, it actually can over time make someone's health and their mental acuity a lot worse, which is kind of the opposite. And I'll explain and illustrate those points a bit more a little bit later in the video. And the process is really about initiating the correct causes via the principles and the process of something called the jing, and then on top of that, developing the correct internal qualities and mental qualities. Now, I want to clarify on the jing, it's not a set of postures, it's not a set of stretches or exercises, it's a set of mechanics that can lead someone through a specific process. And I just mentioned that because if you go on Google or anywhere online and type in jing, you're going to get, again, more error, more misunderstanding. And this is a process that is typically not really shared that publicly and is so far pretty well hidden for the most part. So just to kind of illustrate some of these points and recapping, like, Qigong without the correct qualities, causes, and conditions is basically a waste of time and can actually harm and really not do much of anything for someone's health. So basically, just to kind of illustrate that, I'll kind of show you two different examples. So how most people typically practice is, like, let's say, okay, I want to do something good for my lungs, so I'm going to do magical pulling down cosmic energy from whatever star system, pull it into my lungs, or I'm going to do like some magical movement that's, stretching and pumping my lungs, and I'm breathing in cosmic energy and I'm pulling it in and I'm breathing it in and I'm visualizing and I'm, calming, or I'm doing inner smile, and it's really going to, boost my lungs and boost my lung chi and help me feel more calm and release my attachments and initiate a spiritual process and stimulate the mental element and all these things, which is absolutely completely removed from reality and has nothing to do with any actual causes, any actual conditions, and any aspect of any internal qualities. So what I mean by that is, let's say I just applied the principles of the jing within myself, right? So basically, let's just say up here is the top of my chest, my ribcage, collarbone, which is kind of the lung region or the metal element region within Qigong or Chinese medical thought, right? So I could do what I did before, the visualization, these movements, whatever. Or, I can just take a posture. I don't even need a posture, actually. I can just sit here. And then if I apply the jing, basically, now through that process, my chest and my lungs and my back actually just cracked. You can't really see it that well on the video, but basically this whole region of my body now has a pretty strong stretch. The tissues are actually a bit swollen. Feels like I just went to the gym or something. And basically there's a stretch in an expansion going through my collarbone, going through my upper ribs, up into my back. And as a result, I actually feel more relaxed and I feel like my lungs are open and I naturally want to take a deeper breath and my diaphragm is naturally sinking down. And if you palpate and felt the tissues, they feel lifted off the bone. They feel stretched, elasticated, elongated, full, if that makes sense. If you think about, I don't know, people that are really weak or not very strong or injured or something, you feel, you touch their body and the tissues are like almost not even there. You just go straight to the bone and it just feels kind of empty. Whereas this is kind of the opposite. You touch it and it feels like springy and it pushes back, and this area is naturally kind of full. And there's a stretch that is going through the area that is creating more space and creating a natural expansion. And the more I release into that process, the more I relax, the more I have the correct mental qualities, the more that expansion creates and the more tension is released from that area. And then naturally, the more I'm actually getting benefits in real time for my lungs and then over time for the metal element, because there's basically a magnetic field around this region, a kind of around here or somewhere thereabouts. It varies, but basically this was tying into the contractive aspect of the metal element, which is kind of having to do with this quality, where if I kind of went into it and there was nothing there, probably the lungs are not going to be very strong. So basically, which do you think actually would have more benefits? Which do you think would actually initiate a genuine process of development and a genuine upgrading of the function in that region? Me being like, I'm pulling in cosmic energy. I'm pulling in cosmic energy. I'm smiling. I'm breathing. I'm happy. I'm in my silk robes, versus genuinely having this legitimate process going on. I'm actually starting to get a little bit sweaty. My armpits are kind of hot because of the extra blood flow in the region. And it's actually a bit hot to the touch. I'll probably definitely need a shower later. So it's like, which do we actually think would actually be beneficial over the long term and really genuinely improve someone's health and the associated functions of that organ system? And I would say the second one, but I'm crazy. People are like, oh, but I visualize and it helps me and I pull in cosmic energy. Okay, whatever. Basically, over here in reality, dealing with things that are real and solid, is basically understanding the mechanic of the feedback loop, meaning whichever example we're doing, that's the quality we're putting back into the body. So if we're slack, we're relaxed, we're slumped, we're kind of off in never land visualizing and doing whatever else we're doing, we're putting that quality back into the body. We're telling the tissues to be limp, to be weak. We're relaxing a little bit, but we're also dulling our mind. We're not being able to stabilize our awareness calmly on an object. So we're not actually building any useful internal qualities. We're more or less making ourselves weaker, making ourselves more dull, and making our health worse over time. And people will be like, "Oh, but I do it and I feel relaxed and I feel calm, and you're mean because you're criticizing people and you're being harsh, and old people do tai chi and it's good for them. It helps their balance." It's like, yeah, I'm not denying any of those things. I'm illustrating different qualities and different effects. And more importantly, at best in those examples, what people are doing is deep breathing and some slow coordinated movements. But the fact of the matter is, and the reality is, that they could do literally any movements and get those same benefits. Like, you could literally just do this for an hour and breathe deeply, and I guarantee you'll feel something. Your nerves will start tingling, they'll buzz a little bit. You'll probably feel more relaxed. You'll feel stimulation. You'll probably feel a little bit of blood flow. Your joints will feel a little more loose and relaxed because you're just literally doing this. Or you could just flap. I'm doing flapping my arms, which I guarantee you there's people that really do this as like a form of Qigong. But it's like, you could literally just do this and breathe deeply and you'll get the same benefits, because it has nothing to do with the movements. It's the qualities. It's the cause and effect relationships, and it's the correct conditions that lead to the benefits, not the movement. But people have that all wrong and backwards, and they focus on the movements and think the movements are magical and do whatever. Um, and obviously, movements do have a place and do play a role, but you need to have all the correct conditions in place already. And then the movements can do a lot. But usually, if the movement looks cool and is complicated, and then it's probably not very good. Genuine Qigong movements are usually quite simple and quite boring to look at. Like you see the stuff online with, people doing their cosplay thing and their silk robes with like the cool Chinese music and all these big, long, flowy movements. There's nothing really internal about that at all. And to sum it up, basically, mostly what people are doing these days is idealistic fantasy. Some like idealistic fantasy about qigong or Chinese medicine or Chinese culture or energy, and they're just kind of off in that. Or people are doing that with some cosplay where they're dressing up in the robes and they're doing the silks and they're wearing the Chinese clothes. Which just a quick word on the cool Chinese outfit that people wear and they think is cool and like a status symbol. That's literally what peasants used to wear, which basically why monks started, basically the historical period in time in which monks actually dressed like that. They did it because that's the way peasants and commoners dressed, and they wanted to fit in and look like a peasant or a commoner. So basically, what people are doing now to try and look cool and different are actually they're just dressing like a peasant and a commoner, which to me is absolutely hilarious and like the deepest irony you could possibly imagine. Which leads to the third and final thing people are usually doing, which is wanting to feel unique, different, special, or superior based on whatever fantasy or cosplay thing they're kind of really bought into. And really, this is an arena that where a lot of insecure and pretty unhealthy and oftentimes quite depleted people come to kind of hide or like park their RV in, because it provides an identity boost, provides, many tertiary benefits, but it does not have any accountability or any degree of scrutiny, which is really odd because many other areas of life come with accountability and scrutiny. If I were going to tell you, oh, I'm a professional pianist, I play piano, I do all these things, but I literally can't play the piano, that would make me a liar. That would make me dishonest. If I said, oh, I'm actually an NBA player and I'm 6'8" and I can do all these things, but you meet me and I'm 5'10", 5'9", you're gonna be like, oh wait, you're a liar. What you're saying and doing is not true. No matter how much I want to believe it or how much I want to visualize it or whatever, it's literally not true. Just to go back to recap to my examples, it's not something you're going to show up and be like, oh, I'm a black belt in jiu-jitsu. Because if you say that, you're probably going to very quickly find out that you're not. Or you're going to say, oh, I'm an ultra long distance runner. Okay, go run a couple marathons back to back. Oh, you can't? Okay, well, you're not that thing. Oh, well, I compete in World's Strongest Man. Cool, like push this car or like lift this tree or something, whatever crazy stuff they do. Oh, you can't. Oh, you're probably not that thing, or you're at least not even remotely in the process of developing the qualities and skills associated with that thing. Because obviously, yeah, like very few people are, high level concert pianists, but if you're actually on that path of development, then you can say, oh, you might actually be doing the right thing and developing in the correct way versus not, which to me is completely obvious and common sense in basically every single arena of human life. But when it comes to something like this that people have these idealistic fantasies about, they somehow completely forget all of that aspect of reality and instead get sucked up into whatever else. So hopefully that makes sense and clarifies some points. I'm sure there's going to be a lot of hate and a lot of negative comments from this, but whatever. Hope this has been helpful, and I'll talk to you soon.